On today's Hot Sheet, I'm discussing the Fannie Mae Home Purchase Sentiment Index for September, a Realtor.com rental report, and Don Peebles' interview about the shutdown's impact on real estate. What is Washington, D.C. doing to us? Today is Tuesday, October 14, 2025. I am Byron Lazine, and the Hot Sheet starts now. Live from Naples, welcome back in. Those of you that joined me on the Role Play Mastermind, only for BAMX members. We've already spent 30 minutes together this morning, and coming into the Hot Sheet. Appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed the Role Play Mastermind this morning on BAMX, let me know in the live chat. Let me know wherever you're tuning in from, spending some time, whether it's here on the live show with me or on the replay on Spotify or Apple. Appreciate you. If you're on the replay, wherever you listen to pods, Spotify or Apple, love for you to consider leaving a review on one of those two platforms for the Hot Sheet. If you want access to the BAMX Role Play Masterminds that happens every Tuesday before the Hot Sheet, just go over to school.com/BAMX. Our Role Play Masterminds just live right inside of the calendar. Every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Eastern, you can add it to your calendar. You've got the link right in there. Obviously, there's more than just the role plays like this week. In fact, we have tomorrow, Wednesday, 4:30 Eastern time, Marie Lee and Chris Benjamin on a live Zoom only, school only, BAMX member only, authentic human content creators, how they do real connections with buyers and sellers. This is Marie Lee working with Chris Benjamin on this. Marie Lee's brilliant at this stuff. So we've got live masterminds and sessions every single week, including the live role play mastermind every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Just go to school.com/BAMX to get access to that, plus all of the content and other information inside of BAMX. All right. Fannie Mae just released their National Housing Survey for the month of September. This is the Home Purchase Sentiment Index. Okay, so this is different from, their home price index, their home price indices. This is how do our customers, the people in our communities, feel about what's going on in housing market. Feels have a lot to do with what is going to happen in the economy. Is there going to be a recession? A lot of it has to come down to confidence and feels for it. Right now, this home purchase sentiment from Fannie Mae's National Housing Survey gets, distilled down to a single number. So the HPSI reflects consumers' current views as well as forward-looking expectations, how I feel now in the moment, the rest of the year, and into the future. So housing market conditions, using the existing data sources to inform housing-related analysis and decision-making, okay? Home purchase sentiment index right now for Fannie Mae comes in at 71.4, okay? 71.4 is in line with where we were September, also hitting a 71.4, down from July's 71.8, down from where we've peaked over the last 12 months, which is November 2024 at 75, but well up from our bottom number of October 2022, 56.7. Obviously, October was a few months after the Fed started to really ratchet up the interest rate at a kind of a rate of speed that's highly unusual, but rarely seen, if ever, in history. So the low number was the 56.7, kind of bottomed back out in February of 2023 at 58. We've made a recovery since. Just this past March, we've recovered from that at a 68.1. Again, today sitting at 71.4. That's even above the 63 in April of 2020, where we kind of hit a bottoming point before everybody realized what was going on. So home purchase sentiment index coming in at a 71.4. This is the same as August. Here are some components of the HPSI to consider as you're talking to different buyers. Okay. 2 out of the 6 HPSI components decreased this month. Okay. Buying conditions is one of those decreasers. Good time to buy from buyers, from your customers right now is clocking in at a 27%. 27% of consumers that you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis believe it's a good time to buy. I think there's a real argument that now could be not only a good time, but the time to buy, especially if you're considering places like those Sunbelt states that are in an expansive period economically, Florida and Texas in particular, that are expanding still. We looked at the Moody's report yesterday. If you want to go back to the hot sheet, if you missed it, there are 22 states that are not expanding. In fact, Mark Zandi from Moody's believes that they are in a recession the way he and Moody's analyzes this stuff. There are states that are expanding, while there are states, too, in particular, the big ones, New York and California, in their viewpoint, that are just kind of treading water, hanging on. Those two in particular are really important for what the rest of the states do, but there are states that are expanding. I point out Florida and Texas in particular, because those are 2 states where you've actually had downward pressure on price. And so if those states are going to continue to expand into the future, if the long run future of those states is positive, then the time right now where you have more ability to negotiate higher inventory, downward pressure on price for buyers might be the good time to buy. That 27% of buyers feel like right now, generally, we are in. 73% on the flip side believe it's a bad time to buy. Being able to navigate that conversation due to, in particular to how your market is trending is going to be really important. Year over year, up 16 points on buying conditions. So the good news is, hey, if you're a buyer waiting for perfect, good time to buy, meaning perfect scenario where you can get the best deal. Well, since last year, the good time to buy is up 16 points. If that trend continues, it might get more difficult, higher competition, higher price point even, the longer you wait. If the trend, the feeling continues to go up on buyers conditions, if we get another 16, maybe 26 points, net going into next year, when we look at year over year conditions, it will undoubtedly be more competitive, showing the trend line to buyers who are maybe on that fence, something we talked about in the BAMX role play mastermind today. Those on the fence buyers who maybe have been waiting around for 10 months. There is some definitive language that you can use to move them forward. And then for those analytics, this data can help unlock, wow, maybe waiting is going to cost me a little bit more money. Selling conditions, 57% consumers believe it's a good time, and 41% believe now is a bad time to sell. So you have more of an even mindset of consumers when it comes to selling conditions. Those conditions have moved down 13 points year over year. That's another indicator that buyers are getting more of the leverage to swing in their direction. Home price outlook, really interesting. 40% of consumers believe home prices are going to go up. I'm sorry, 40%, 4 out of 10 consumers say home prices are going to go up. Only 2 out of 10 say home prices will go down. Okay, so that means, there's a lot of buyers in there, 4 out of 10 about that believe, hey, home prices are going to stay the same. Only 2 out of 10 consumers believe home prices are going to go down. And so for those buyers waiting on price, truly, what would you be waiting for? What's the riskier move right now? Hey, knowing you've got leverage to negotiate now, using that leverage, or waiting for just a little bit more incremental leverage into the future. There's a lot of reasons. Barry Habib talks about a bunch of them on Knowledge Brokers podcast from last Friday, which you can go check out on separate channel. A lot of reasons why you're not going to get some kind of 2008 scenario where you just get these massive discounts. We talk about that here on the hot sheet a lot. Mortgage rate outlook. Consumers, 32% believe mortgage rate outlook is going to go down. Month over month, though, that sentiment has changed down 5 points. 30% believing it'll go up. Year over year, the sentiment on mortgage rate outlook has moved negative 13 points. Job loss concern, 75% are not concerned, while 25% are concerned. So 1 out of 4 consumers are concerned at some level, some degree about a job loss. That's interesting to take note of because that's up 5 points there. And change in household income right now, significantly higher, 14%, significantly lower, 8%. So a little bit of half and half there. Okay. Out of the respondents who say it's a good time to buy, all these charts will be obviously available for you inside of BAMX. Go to school.com/BAMX to get access to all of the hot sheet charts each and every single day that we do the show. Again, bad time to buy up at 73%, good time down 27%. The net good time to buy at negative 46% right now. On the sell side, again, that's that scenario much closer than the buy side, and the line chart shows that clearly. Okay. Mortgage rates, again, covered that, and job market. We've got all of that in there for you for anybody who needs that one-on-one. A lot of these slides, I talk about this. I'll just jump into BAMX real quick for BAMX members here. I talk about, hey, what are the hot sheet slides? You go to the classroom, go into hot sheet. What are these slides useful for? Should you be using these in a lot of your social? I would almost argue no, unless it's some type of green screen once in a while. Maybe it's your own local hot sheet show that you're producing for your clients. But for the one-on-one videos, meaning the one-on-one update videos with your clients and your customers that you're sending out weekly to your database to update them on what's going on in their inbox, or those one-on-one text messages where you're having a conversation, you need to back up what you're saying with a little bit of proof, a little bit of data. That's where these slides come in really effectively. You simply can just click on the slide, whether you're on the mobile app in school or on the desktop, click the little arrow at the top right, and that'll download. So average expected percent change over the next 12 months. Rental 6% up on rents. Consumers believe rents are going up 6%, while they believe home prices are only going to go up 1.8%. To me, that's one of those arguments on, hey, your competition right now believe both is going up. If these numbers come true based on the competition that's competing with you for a rental or for a home purchase, if either of these are true, 1.8 or 6%, which one would you rather be sitting in as they go up the respective numbers? Okay. Here are respondents who say they would buy or rent if they were to move. Right now, 67% say they're going to buy over the 33%. Or I'm sorry. 67% say that if they move, they're going to buy over the 33% who said if they move, they're going to rent. Interesting scenario there. We know we have pent up demand. We know that the rates are holding this demand back from coming into the market. And you've got 2 out of 3 people who say, yeah, if I move, I'm a buyer. That tells me that, we won't be at 4 million existing home sales on an annual seasonally adjusted basis forever. It means there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. We've got to get there. We've got to get rates to get there. Respondents who think it would be easy versus difficult to get a home mortgage today, 57% say, hey, getting a home mortgage is difficult. Maybe you have a framework or somebody you work with to be able to help navigate that. And I think that's information that buyers need, that maybe, depending on stable job, good credit, maybe it's not as difficult as one thinks, or you have a process to make that less difficult. Respondents who expect their personal financial situation to get better over the next 12 months, 32% believe that to be the case, while 23% say it's going to get worse. 45% say it will stay about the same. All right, there's your update on the Fannie Mae home purchase sentiment, how your consumers are feeling right now based on their work and their survey. That's all available inside of school.com/BAMX if you want any of those slides or additional information there. Shout out to Barry Habib, who's now a Fannie Mae board of director. Joined us on Knowledge Brokers podcast on Friday. Separate channel, separate Spotify, separate Apple, wherever you listen to that stuff. Go check that out. He had some really interesting insights. Obviously, if you know the mortgage industry, you know Barry Habib and know why he got on the Fannie Mae board of directors. And he shared a whole bunch with us for the BAM community over on Knowledge Brokers podcast. All right. Mortgage rates. Speaking of the mortgage industry, this is a realtor.com article. This is based on this Fannie Mae projection. They just issued some new projections. And I just want to touch on this real quickly before I go to their rental report. Okay. The Realtor.com projections projections covered again by Fannie Mae on their recent projections have an outlook that by the end of 2026, mortgage rates will finally fall below 6%. Okay, so we've covered this Fannie Mae new projection. The last monthly economic housing outlook predicts mortgage rates will average 6.4 at the end of this year and 5.9 at the end of 2026. So not until the end of 2026 does Fannie Mae's prediction call for these mortgage rates. Now, we've seen some pretty big swings on this month over month as they come out with these new projections. Why am I bringing this back up? Well, because Barry Habib, who I just mentioned, was on Knowledge Brokers podcast, he gave us his personal, not the Fannie Mae, but his personal projection that in 2026, this year, we will maybe potentially be closer to 5.5%. Okay, so he's a little bit more bullish than the overall Fannie Mae projection. Something to watch for and something definitely to go to listen to when you get a chance later this week. All right, Realtor.com also has their September 2025 rental report. Rental affordability, has that improved? If rental affordability has improved, that means inflation is also improving. The lagging data that lives within the CPI is kind of what Jerome Powell wants to hang his hat on. But we know, looking past the last 24, 26 months, rents have been coming down. Rent inflation is not what is reflected in the CPI using outdated data. Barry talked about this when we talk about owner's equivalent rent. Rental affordability, if rents are coming down, must be going up. And that is the case here today. September 2025 rental trends. It's 26 now straight months of year-over-year rent decline for 0 to 2 bedroom properties since this data started to began in 2020. Asking rents dipped by $36. Okay, no, that's not a huge order at lunch or anything. It might be for one. And so it's not a ton of money, but it's 2.1% year over year drop. It's moving in the right direction. Inflation means prices continue to move up. When they go down, that is the opposite of inflation. The median asking rent in the 50 largest metros came in at $1,700. Okay, $56 lower than its August 22 peak. $241 then higher than pre-pandemic level, 16.5%. Listen, you're not going to get that $241 back. Not going to happen. Okay. For everybody that's got, some moron in their doom scroll feed saying, well, we need it to go back to pre-pandemic prices. Dude, I mean, I'd like to be as, athletic as I was at 17 when I was playing football, man, peak athleticism. I'd love to go back to it. Okay. Not going to happen. Not as flexible as I was when I was 17. Listen, the market's not going down $241. There might be some little dynamics in certain markets. We're talking about the macro here. We're talking about the US. There's been a new price barrier broken. Now we've kind of normalized, which is good. In fact, we've seen 26 straight months of year-over-year declines, but it's not going to decline 16%. Okay. And so, you need to acknowledge that, understand where the new market barrier is, and factor in for that. Affordability, according to this report, Realtor.com, nationwide rent slightly more affordable than the previous year. Renters earning the typical household income devoted 23.4% of their income to lease a typical for-rent home versus 24.9% in September of 2024. So from a rental perspective, that's a pretty good number. Hey, under 25% of your income. We see buyers get kind of crazy with that number often. Rents decline again. This is the chart that Jerome Powell and the FOMC never look at. They've never seen it. Somehow it misses real data in real time misses them every single time. Nationwide rent is 3.2% below the 2022 peak. And it shows the decline of the last couple of years, the 26 straight months, showing that we do not have an inflation issue as it relates to home prices. In fact, we have markets that are now not only attractive to many migrants here across the country that have been attractive over the last number of years, but they are actually now, affordable markets. One of those being Austin. Austin, Texas is what I would consider the most affordable, done the best with home affordability on the purchase and on the rental side. There's an argument to be made, and overabundance of inventory can work for affordability. Just jack up that supply, and it puts extreme downward pressure on prices. That's what's happened in Austin. It continued to really develop. It's the most affordable rental market in September 2025, according to Realtor.com. The median rent for the typical 0 to 2 bedroom unit was just 55% of its estimated maximum affordable rent. So really good scenario shaking out there in Austin, which has been a boom city over the last number of years. All unit sizes saw rent declines across the board: studio, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom. Here in this Realtor.com report, here are the national rents by unit size. Okay. You have the overall rent at $1,700, as we described. Studios coming at $1,400 and change, while the 1 bedrooms are just under $1,600, $1,580. It's a 2.3% year-over-year decline on 1 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms coming in just under $1,900, $1,885, 2.2% down annually. All in the over 2 years of consecutive months of decline category, all studio, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom. Okay. Here are the markets with a rental burden above 30% of income. So the least affordable, you've got Miami, LA, New York, Boston, and San Diego. Austin, I said Boston, not Austin, just to be sure of that. Austin, again, coming in as the most affordable rental market, followed by OKC, Oklahoma City, Raleigh, North Carolina. Where are my Raleigh people at? I've been getting it right. I've stopped pronouncing it wrong. Raleigh. I think of Lee from my team in Connecticut, runs sales. I think Lee. I think Raleigh. That's how I do it. Okay. That's how I speak correctly. Raleigh coming in at the 3rd spot, Columbus, Ohio, and then Minneapolis in at the 5 spot. Those are your most affordable rental markets. Top 5 markets with the most improved. Okay. At the end of the year in the NFL, they're going to say, hey, comeback player of the year, the one with the improvements. You used to see these awards when you were a kid. Most improved. It's like, hey, you weren't the best. You weren't the winner. But we want to give you something. You had a lot of grit. You had some real try hard to you. These are the markets that improved the most. It's Jacksonville, it's San Diego, Miami. While it's still in the most unaffordable top 5, it actually clocks in as having dramatic improvements there. At number 3, Denver. I'll be in Denver. Speaking of Denver, I'll be there the end of next week for the Fusion Rally. If you've missed me at Sirhant or Jared James Advance, or certainly BAM Camp, come check me out at the Fusion Rally in Denver next week. I'll put a link down below so you can come. If you're in driving distance from Denver, you got to be in that room. Serious operators there. Denver, number 4 on most improvement. Austin, while it's number 1 for most affordable, it continues to improve and get better. Okay, just getting like a fine wine there in Austin, Texas. Phoenix, beautiful place, coming in at number 6 for improvement. All right, there's your rental up to the minute report from Realtor.com's analysis and their reporting. I guess we're the only ones here that use this private data effectively. Right now, government shutdown, we're worried about, hey, they're not getting the data they need. Well, the data's out there. They just need to choose to use accurate data instead of lagging government data. It's one of the biggest issues with how we're computing for inflation right now. We'll see what obviously the Fed does in, just over 2 weeks from today. We'll see a new Fed decision. In the meantime, Don Peebles from Peebles Corporation had some commentary on the government shutdown. Okay. In particular, commentary on the government shutdown, how it relates to real estate, the housing market. That's what we care about. So that's why we're going to listen in. If you go to the 30-second clip mark, Bobby, I'd love to just get up the question about what the shutdown is doing to the real estate market. And we'll get Don Peebles' response here to that. This is somebody who is, Don Peebles is a big investor in real estate across the country and is recognized as one of the top investors in the market. Bobby, do we have that up, or there it is? Let's go to the question.
What exactly is the shutdown doing in your mind to the real estate market in America?
Bringing a lot of instability to the marketplace. The market's already struggling because of high interest rates and also excessive vacancy rates for commercial office buildings around the country, and also lack of affordability in housing markets that are supply constrained and not enough inventory. So that combination of things is making it very difficult, and the government shutdown adds uncertainty and the inability to produce new housing. And I think.
Okay, so listen, I don't know that many markets feel the way Don feels in real time. Okay, like how has the government shutdown impacted the real estate market? I would argue not much at all. Okay, now what he's talking about there at the end, where it adds uncertainty, it does add a little component of uncertainty, which will certainly impact some of those confidence scores, like the ones from Fannie Mae that we were just reviewing earlier. And if this is a prolonged shutdown, if this breaks some kind of record, if this extends and never ends, then I think that uncertainty continues to grow, and the confidence in the decision makers in DC, which probably is lacking with a lot of folks, but that confidence goes down even more. And I think that's probably the biggest concern for the real estate market. The affordability and the rate situation existed before the shutdown. In fact, the shutdown hasn't impacted rates at all, which tells me that investors aren't really paying much mind yet at this point to a government shutdown. That could always change in the future. But they're viewing it, from my perspective, and this is my perspective, but I feel like the investors are viewing it the same way, where it's like, hey, you've got two sides of an aisle that are fighting like a bunch of little children, and eventually they're going to get tired of fighting in tears, and they're going to make up and they're going to go play in the sandbox again. And ultimately, that's what is going to happen. When is the big question? The excessive vacancy rates and high interest rates, those all existed. He goes on to mention which parts of the countries or sectors are being hit the hardest. And number one points out Washington, D.C. And I think this is where you have to have a local conversation about different economical impacts and how they might impact your local situation. Let's listen in for a minute here, Bobby, on the D.C. analysis from Peebles.
In addition to those, are there specific areas, whether it be geographies or parts of the real estate market, that you think will be more severely impacted on a relative basis, given the shutdown dynamic?
Oh, yeah. Number one, Washington, D.C. The Washington, D.C. metro area, especially Washington, D.C. proper, is going to be devastated. It's already struggling with vacancy rates well into the 20s for commercial office buildings. Crime and cost of living and diminished quality of life has pushed people out of Washington, D.C. in terms of the housing market. And so you have higher vacancy rates in the housing market and prices on the downside there. And then the other element is Washington, D.C. has really relied so heavily on it being the nation's capital without expanding its marketplace in terms of attractiveness for businesses and entrepreneurs, and then a regressive tax policy. Those elements combined.
Yeah. So I think that's the most interesting thing there was, and I said this from the Sirhan stage a couple of weeks ago when he invited me in to do a fireside chat. If you had nothing, lost everything, however you want to describe that, you were starting over a real estate career, how would you go? What would be the first thing you'd do? And the first thing I would do is identify market. I think DC, the impact on any real estate market in DC is more in line with, what he said at the end there. Okay, they've relied so heavily on being the nation's capital. You might see other markets rely so heavily on being a military hub, and then maybe they lose that base, or there's a threat of them losing, that military hub. And you're like, man, what would that do to the local economy? DC, because I would argue that because DC is the nation's capital and you have so many of those decision makers there, it should be a hub to attract tech and innovation and business building, because you have access to some of the rule makers right there. But it hasn't attracted business and entrepreneurs. So if I was identifying market for the future, I'd be thinking, what are the markets that are in expansion, like we talked about yesterday, for attracting business, entrepreneurs, those types of things. And maybe that's the hardest hit to DC. Obviously, right now, when you have a government shutdown and people are potentially being laid off into that, because of that shutdown, you're going to have a local dynamic. He goes on to talk about Florida. We won't get into that as we are now up against it here. But government shutdown in one investor's mind is having a great impact on the real estate market. I haven't seen much of it yet, and I tend to lean into how the investors are reacting to the real estate market, which has been basically no reaction whatsoever. 10-year treasury comes in at 4.042, a little bit less than where we were at yesterday. We'll get a 30-year fixed reading today. We didn't have one with yesterday's holiday. Banks were shut down. Shout out Bank of America. I went all the way there thinking you were open. I will be back haunting you today. 6.32 was where we ended last week on the 30-year fix. CME Group Polymarket still overwhelmingly projecting a rate cut in a couple of weeks when the Fed meets. I mentioned Denver earlier. If you're in that area, grab your ticket right now. It's down below. You can use BZ25 to get the deal on that. Fusion Rally in Denver next week. It's next Friday actually. So it's October 24th, next Friday. I'm doing the keynote in the morning, and love to see you guys there. So grab your ticket to that high level room of operators happening there. All right. We'll have a new real word later today. I'll give you a teaser. There's a release, a letter put out by the NAR CEO. I'll be breaking it down, what it all means on the real word later today. I'll see you there. See you in the comments. Until then, of course, toodaloo.